Good morning. My name is James Little and my company is Mass Spec Interpretation Services. Today I will be discussing Wiley's newly released software for processing mass spec data. It is part of their vendor-neutral data processing solution, KnowItAll, which is utilized with a variety of spectral techniques including mass spec, NMR, infrared, and others. Today's presentation is entitled Process It for Manual Processing of EI/GC Mass Spec Data. A series of training videos and handouts for KnowItAll mass spectrometry software can be found on my personal website. First, let's go to the software and go over to where the function bar is on the left side of your screen and open up Spectral Processing. That will open up so that you can see the Process It icon. We'll click on it and open the data file. I'm using a data file that should be delivered with the software, and it's found in the MS Expert folder within their Samples folder. And let's find V50. It's in CDF format, and we'll open it. The first thing one needs to do is make sure that we're in nominal mass mode, since this is a nominal mass file. So we'll go up to View and say make sure it says Show Unit Masses is selected, like it is here. After we do that, you can go and look at a peak. So the easiest way to look at a peak for me when I'm in manual mode is to expand the chromatogram. So I'll right click and say horizontal zoom mode, and now you can see the icon has changed on the mouse, and I'll expand over the region of interest. After you do that, to get a spectrum, you have to go right click again and say selection mode. Now the pointer appears again and you can get a spectrum. Many of these right click functions are also shown in the boxes and these icons above, or possibly in the pull down menus from the top of the menu. But I prefer the right mouse. It seems to be much more efficient for me. And at this point in time, you can click on a spectrum and it's displayed in the bottom box. So the bottom box looks like a spectrum of a compound. What the box up from that is a dynamically or a real-time type scanning box. As you move the mouse across the peak, you can see that it changes the spectrum in that box there. You can see at the front of the peak that it looks like there's a good bit of air in the sample, and as you move across the peak, you can find the spectrum of the component of interest. Some people might like that, and I find it useful in many cases for a lot of applications, but if you don't, you can make more screen space by just pulling up the menu bar here. So I just grabbed it till it turned into a different mouse pointer, and you can do the same thing on the side. As you approach a bar edge, you can see that you can actually change the size of boxes. So for our application currently, let's just make that box go away to give more room on the bottom. Now as we click on the spectrum, we get the spectrum of interest. So that's really the simplest way. And if you don't have a lot of noise, in this case chemical noise from air, you can just send the spectrum to the library for searching at this point. And if you need to go back and look at the whole chromatogram, of course, right click, say zoom out. Often in GC mass spec analyses, there will be a good bit of chemical background in the chromatogram. So if we move out here and click at about 29 minutes, you can see there is a good bit of air and other back chemical noise here that we need to get rid of before we do the library search. To do this is very easy with the KnowItAll software. You see if you click in this average range bar, if you just let it hover in there, your mouse pointer changes and you can stretch and get a region to define. I didn't quite get what I want, so you can actually grab the edge of it and make it a little bit bigger if you want to. So let's make it a little bit bigger in front and the back side. Now we need to get rid of the noise, and we go up to the background range bar, and again the mouse pointer changes. In this case, let's take chemical noise in front and behind the peak. Now if you look in the bottom spectrum, you can see that all the chemical noise is gone, and we can send it to library searching for processing. If you decided you did not want this bar on the back side for the background, you can go up here and right click when you're within the background range bar on that particular range and say delete this range, and it'll go away. So it's easy to get rid of things if you don't want to. If you want to start all over again, just go to the trash can on the top, trash can on the bottom, and then you can start again and get a spectrum of another peak. And you've gotten rid of all the chemical noise there. If you decided you wanted to get the spectrum of this peak, you can do it several different ways. You can take it and go into the average range bar and just let it grab it and move it out there. So you can reposition these ranges if you want to, and now you have the spectrum of that component. So there's many different ways to do this. It just depends on which you prefer. Now let's process some accurate mass data. You have to change a few settings from going from nominal to accurate mass. One being the view. You have to say show accurate masses as opposed to show unit masses. So we need to click show accurate masses. In the bottom spectrum pane somewhere, you need to right click and say edit properties. And you can't do this in the chromatogram because these properties pertain to spectra. So edit the properties here. And you go over to this tab called global settings and change it to an appropriate number. 4 is usually a good number, and say OK. There's other things you can change here, such as axes, colors and fonts, etc. And this is, if you'd like to change how your display look, this would be a good place to do that. And of course, the top one, you'd have to right click in the chromatogram window to change things such as the colors and fonts in that window. They're separate. So now we need to open an accurate mass file. So let's go find one. We'll open a data file. We're going to use one that's supplied with the software that you obtain from Wiley. It's called OBAN 14, and it's a JEOL high-resolution file. And as I said before, these files are found in the MS Expert folder within the sample folder of the Wiley tree of software that you installed. So we'll open that. The peak that I want to demonstrate with is this little peak here, which is somewhat small. So to do that, we'll right-click, and instead of doing the horizontal zoom mode, we'll do the box zoom mode, and that'll let me scale it to be bigger, make it easier to process. All right, so again, if you wanted to look this by just single-clicking, you have to change the pointer to the selection mode and click on the peak. It's such a small peak, I'm worried about the amount of chemical noise. If you click in front of it, it'll have a lot of this 45 ion. So I click on it. I need to really do a background subtract. So to do the background subtract, as we did before, we'll go down to the average bar, and as soon as your pointer hits that, it changes shape, and we'll pull it across and take an average for the foreground. If you decide you don't like that, remember you can go and you can change where it is. You can move it around if you grab the center, and you can resize it by grabbing either side. So we have the foreground spectrum. Now we need to do a background. So we go to the top, and you can see here that it changes again, and we'll do a one in front. Let's do one in back also. And now we have our spectrum on the bottom. It's this background subtracted spectra. And again, in this window, if you find you don't want this dynamic window where it changes as you go across the peak, just go and push up on the bars there. Again, the mouse pointer changes shapes, and I can make it go away. Just give me more space to work. And at this point, you're ready to send this to the search. The other thing that you'll notice is that at the bottom, it didn't close up our V50 file that we had open before. It's still there. So you can go back and forth between the files if you need be to process again from the original file. So I hope you found it useful to know how to use Process-It for manual processing of EI GCMS data. Be sure to check out other videos from this series on my website that include other information on how to do library searches, structure searches, etc. So long.